Hello everyone, Dr. Schultz here. This is a video for Music 103A, and the video is about the inversion of chords, the inversion of triads and seventh chords. And you'll want to read the textbook in chapter 3, pages 44 through 55. And you also want to make sure that you have your spelling triads and seventh chord handout next to you while you're working on this. Now, if you look at the spelling triads and seventh chord handout, you'll notice that we already did study the triads and the seventh chords in root position. So just a reminder, there are 4 types of triads: major, minor, diminished, and augmented. And there are 5 types of seventh chords: major 7, major minor 7, the minor seventh chord, half diminished seventh, and fully diminished seventh. Now, just a reminder to please make sure that you use the symbols that are in parentheses here. Those are the symbols that you're going to use from the book: major seventh chord, major minor seventh, minor seventh, half diminished seventh, and the fully diminished seventh. Now, if you look at the bottom right-hand part of the handout, you'll see the inversion symbols for the triads and the seventh chords. Notice that for triads, if you have a root position triad, there's no symbol. If you have first inversion, use 6. You'll have the third in the bass. For second inversion, you're going to use 6-4, and that has the 5th in the bass. Now, for seventh chords, you have to use a symbol for the root position. So 7 means root position for seventh chords. 6-5 means first inversion for seventh chords, the third in the bass. 4-3 means second inversion, 5th in the bass. And 4-2 means third inversion, the 7th in the bass. Now, there's a really easy way to remember the inversions for seventh chords. Just count backwards from 7. 7, 6-5, 4-3, 2. See how they're just backwards from 7? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. You do have to add the 4 to the third inversion chord, though. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 2. Now, I also wanted to show you where those numbers came from and how they're used and why they're used, why they are the way they are. And so let's take a look at an example of a triad. First of all here, we're just going to take an F major chord. Okay, and you can see there's a root position F major chord. What's true about that is between the bass, which is the root, and the 5th, there's an interval of a 5. Between the F and the A, root to third, of course, there's a third. So if you look between the bass, from the bass, F to C is a 5th, F to A is a third. Now, if I invert that chord, I'll have the A in the bass. Notice it's still the same 3 notes, F, A, C, but this time I have the A in the bass. The inversion is determined by the lowest sounding note. So here, the third in the bass determines the inversion. Now, intervals from the bass here, A to F is a 6, and A to C is a third. And again, those numbers are indications of intervals above the bass note, right? Now, if you take the same 3 notes and you invert again, you're going to have CFA with the C in the bass. Now, just a reminder, when you invert, you're basically just taking that bottom note and you're putting it above, right? So instead of FAC, now I have ACF, and then I have CFA. Still have the same 3 notes, FAC, but the bass has changed. The bass determines the inversion. C to A is a 6, and C to F is a 4th. Okay, so there we have root position, first inversion, and second inversion for triads. Now, if you use a Roman numeral, say I was in the key of F, then I would say this is 1. I don't need any symbol for the inversion. 1-6 for first inversion. 1-6-4 for second inversion. Okay, so they actually use nothing for the root, 6 for first inversion and 6-4 for second inversion. You might also remember that our book calls those bass position symbols, or BPS, but it's really nothing more than the inversion symbol that you would use with a Roman numeral. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for seventh chords. I'm going to show you where the inversion symbols came from for the seventh chords. And again, it really has to do with intervals above the bass. Here we have a D minor seventh chord, D, F, A, C. Notice that is a minor seventh chord. Has a minor triad with a minor seventh between the root and the seventh. And the inversion symbol for root position, remember, is simply just 7, but it comes about by looking at the distance from the D to the C, which is a 7, D to A, which is a 5, and D to F, which is a third. And what they did is they just simply used 7 for the shorthand. All right, invert that chord, and you'll put the D on top. Still the same 4 notes. But this time we have the D as the top, and the F is the bass note, right? The bass note determines the inversion. Here we have the third in the bass. This is known as first inversion for 7th chords. From F to D is a 6, F to C is a 5, F to A is a third. The shorthand they use is 6-5. Okay, keep inverting. This time we're going to put the 5th in the bass. Still D, F, A, C, but this time we have the A in the bass. And intervals above the bass, A to F is a 6, A to D is a 4th, A to C is a 3rd. Now, because we already have 6-4 for triads, we use 4-3 for the 7th chord. So 4-3 tells you 5th in the bass for 7th chord, or second inversion. Now, there are 4 notes in 7th chords, so there are 4 positions: root position, first inversion, second inversion, and third inversion. Third inversion has a 7th in the bass. And you can see above the bass, C to A, 6, C to F, 4, C to D, 2. And again, the symbol is just simply 4-2. So you can see where those inversion symbols came about. 7 for root position, 7th chord, 6-5 first inversion, 4-3 second inversion, and 4-2 third inversion with the 7th in the bass. It's also helpful to think about the keyboard when you're looking at inversions. Let's take that F major triad from before. Here's F, A, C, that's F major. Notice the distance from the root to the 5th is a 5, and the root to the 3rd is a 3. Root position. Take that F, put it above. Now you have the A as the bass note, right? A, C, F. And the distance from the bass, A to F is a 6. A to C is a 3rd. Second inversion, put the C in the bass. Intervals from the bass, C to A is a 6, C to F is a 4th. So again, here's root position, first inversion, second inversion. Let's do the same for 7th chords. Take that D minor 7th chord example that we looked at earlier. D, F, A, C, minor 7th chord. So you can see between D and C is a 7, D and A is a 5, and D and F is a 3rd. Now take that D, put it on top. There's a first inversion. Intervals from the bass, 6, 5, 3. Now put the 5th in the bass. Intervals above the bass for second inversion 7th chords. 6, 4, 3. Now put the C in the bass. Intervals above the bass, 6, 4, and 2. Okay, let's take a look at that again. 7th chord. Now we're going to apply what we learned about triads and 7th chords inverted to some of the examples from the textbook. This is the textbook, page 48. It's in chapter 3. And we're going to look at self-test 3-3 on the bottom of the page. And what I've done is I've copied the examples from page 48 onto a separate sheet of paper. So here are those examples. So let's take a look at the first one. What you have to do first is simply look at the notes. what I call take an inventory of the pitches that are there. So let's take a look at the notes from the bottom up. G, B, D, E. Right? G, B, D, and E. Now, what you want to do is you want to arrange those 4 pitches so that they're in root position. Now, how do you know that you found root position? You know that you found root position when all the notes are a third apart from one another. All the letter names are a third apart from one another. You can see right now the distance from D to E is a second in the letter names. I want to arrange those 4 pitches so that they're all a third apart. Now you can kind of do it through trial and error, but after a while you'll get pretty quick at it just by seeing the notes. You could start from G and say, here's a third between G and B, and then between B and D is a third, but then D and E is a second. That doesn't work. You could start from the B and say B to D is a third, D to E is a second. Nope, still not there. You could start with the D and say D to E is a second. That doesn't work. Start with the E, and you'll notice that if you start with E, you have the chord in root position. It's spelled E, G, B, and D. Now, how do you know that it's root position? Again, it's in root position because all the letter names are a third apart from one another. So E to G is a third, G to B is a third, and B to D is a third. So that's root position. Visually on the staff, in root position, it would look like this. Right? That's a root position chord on E. Here's the inversion of it. Still the same 4 notes, but again, the bass note, the bottom note determines the inversion. All right, now to answer the questions, first thing you're going to say is what's the root? Now the root, of course, is E, because if we stack it in root position, we know that E is the root, G is a third, B is the fifth, and D is the seventh. So the root is E. The type of chord? Well, again, you have to go back to the root position to determine the type. And if you look at the distance from E to G, that's a minor third. G to B is a major third, so E, G, B is a minor triad. And then between E and D is a minor seventh. So this is a minor seventh chord. Don't forget to include the 7. If you just put the little m, that's a triad. Little m7 is minor seventh. Now, the last thing is the inversion symbol. And here you can see that the bass note is the G, the third. And for 7th chords, if the third is the bass, that's 6-5. Now, you can always remember to use your spelling triads and 7th chord handout. If you look at that, you can see the inversion for 7th chords. If you have the third in the bass, it's 6-5 position. Okay, the next one is a triad. It only has 3 notes. And again, you're going to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you know what the root position chord is. So given the notes, C sharp, E, and A, arrange those notes so they're all a third apart in letter names. And you would come up with A, C sharp, E. That's root position for that particular triad. Now again, we're looking what we're answering for this example. We want to say what the root is. We want to say what the type is. Now type is the same as quality. That's going to be one of your 4 triads or one of your 5 7th chords. And then we also want to know what the inversion symbol is. So the root on this one is A. The quality or type? Well, this is a triad, and if you look at the root position, between A and C sharp is a major third, C sharp to E is a minor third. That makes a major triad. And then the inversion symbol? Well, remember that triads have different inversion symbols than 7th chords do. Here we have the C sharp in the bass. Notice that is the third of the chord. And remember, if you have the third in the bass for triads, you're going to use the inversion symbol 6. And again, if you want to remember back to your 7th chord, spelling triad and 7th chord handout, you'll notice the inversion symbols for triads are written there, also for 7th chords. So this one we just did had the third in the bass for triads, and that's why we use the symbol 6. Let's keep going. So here's number 3. This is self-test 3-3 on the bottom of page 48 in the textbook again. What we're looking for is the root, the type, and the inversion symbol for each one. Here's number 3. So again, look at the notes. We have the notes D, F, G sharp, and B from the bottom up. You want to arrange those 4 notes so they're all a third apart. That will give you the root position chord. So given the notes D, F, G sharp, and B, you would find that G sharp is the root, because if you write those 4 notes, you'll notice that there is a third between each one in the letter names, right? G sharp to B is a third, B to D is a third, and D to F is a third. You know you found root position when all the letter names are a third apart. Okay, so the first answer, of course, for the root of the chord, it's G sharp. For the quality or the type, you want to, again, look at the root position chords. So between G sharp and B, minor third, B to D minor third, and D to F minor third. All minor thirds stacked on top of one another is a fully diminished 7th chord, remember? Again, don't forget to use the 7 when you have a 7th chord. If you just put the diminished symbol, you'll have only a triad. Okay, now the bass symbol or the inversion symbol. Notice the D is in the bass, and the D is the 5th of the chord. Well, if you have the 5th in the bass for 7th chords, the symbol you use is 4-3. Okay, I'm going to go over the last 3, numbers 4, 5, and 6, a little more quickly, a little quicker. B, D, E, and G sharp, right? From the bottom up, B, D, E, and G sharp. Take those notes and put them in order from thirds, and you'll have E, G sharp, B, and D. So E is your root. The 7th chord type, well, we have a major triad on the bottom, E, G sharp, B. And the distance from E to D, the root to the 7th, is a minor 7. So this is a major minor 7th chord. And the inversion symbol. Notice the B is the bass. Again, that is the 5th, so 4-3. Okay, number 5 is a triad, right? Only 3 notes. And the notes are G sharp, C sharp, and E. Put it in root position. C sharp, E, and G sharp. Again, you know it's root position because all the letter names are a third apart from one another. Now, when you're doing this, don't forget to use the appropriate accidentals. So if I left off the C, for example, I'd have the wrong chord. Or if I left off the C sharp, I'd have the wrong chord. Make sure it's C sharp, E, G sharp, not C, E, G sharp. So make sure you carry the accidentals over. Okay, C sharp, E, G sharp. C sharp's the root. The quality of the chord, again, look back. The quality of the type, look back at the distance from the root to the third to the 5th. That makes a minor triad. And notice the G sharp is the bass. That's the 5th in the bass. So it's 6-4 position. All right, finally, number 6 here. The notes are C, D, F, and A flat. C, D, F, and A flat. In root position, you would have it spelled D, F, A flat, and C. All the letter names are a third apart from one another. D, F, A flat, C. So the root is D. The type or quality of the chord, this is a diminished triad with a minor 7th. Notice the distance from the 5th to the 7th is a major third, not a minor third. So that makes half diminished 7. Okay, and then what's in the bass? The C is the bass. Notice the C is the 7th of the chord. So the inversion symbol is 4-2. Okay, here's a look back at the examples that we just did. Just a reminder that if you do any self-tests from the textbook, the answers are in the back of the book. So the examples that we just did together, make sure you check those, the rest of them, if you want to complete the rest of them, self-test 3-3, the answers are in the back. Okay, now what we're going to look at is in your workbook, and this is page 26. So workbook, page 26. And first of all, let me play the example for you. This is basically taking the inversions to the next level. This is a real piece of music here. And first of all, take a listen to it. Here's a repeat. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing that we did with the close position triads and seventh chords from the textbook. Now in the workbook here, this is an actual piece of music we're going to take and we're going to look at the chords and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to tell what is the root of the chord, what is the type, and then what's the bass position symbol. Now remember, the bass position symbol is the same thing as the inversion symbol. It really is the same process. So you just take a look at all the notes that are there. So here's D, D, F sharp, A. Now notice this is written for 4 voices, and if you have triads, of course you're going to have one of the notes doubled. So you can just ignore one of the D's here. And it really is the same process. You're going to take those notes, and again, just ignore one of the D's because you have 2 of them. You're going to take the notes D, F sharp, and A, and you want to make sure that you're looking at it in root position. So here's the root position chord, D, F sharp, A. And again, you know you're in root position because all the notes are a third apart from one another. So D to F sharp is a third apart in the letter names. F sharp to A is a third apart in the letter names. So that's root position. Now if you look at my hand on the keyboard, you can actually see, here's D, F sharp, A. Of course, in the music, you'll notice it's actually spread out a little bit more, and this is what it looks like on the keyboard. But the only thing that controls the inversion is the bass note. It doesn't matter how things are distributed above the bass note. It could be that, it could be this, it could be that. If the bass is D, it's still in root position. All right, so back to the page 26 workbook here. So the root of this chord is D. What's the type? The type or the quality? Again, look at the root position chords so you know between D and F sharp is a major third. F sharp to A is a minor third. So that is a major triad. Now remember, the bass note in this case, this note right here determines the inversion. If the D is the bass, then the inversion symbol is nothing for triads. So you can just leave that blank, or you can just draw a line if you feel better about that. All right, second one. Notice the notes from the bass up. G, D, G, B flat. Right? G, D, G, and B flat. There are 2 G's, so you can ignore one of them. Express this in root position, you'd have G, B flat, D. Right? G, B flat, D. And again, here's the root position chord in the keyboard. G, B flat, D. And the music that you're looking at, the chord is actually written like this. So again, it doesn't matter how things are distributed above the bass determines. So this is G minor in root position. This is still G minor in root position. The bass note determines the inversion. Okay, so G is the root. What's the quality? G to B flat's a minor third. B flat to D is a major third. That's a minor triad. Don't forget to include the little line over your M to make sure that I can see the difference between capital M and little m. And you'll notice the G is the bass, right? That's root position. So again, no symbol needed for the inversion. Okay, let's look at number 20. The notes in number 20 are, from the bottom up, A, C, F, C. A, C, F, C. 2 C's, right? So just get rid of one of the C's when you're thinking about it. And if you look at it in root position, it would look like this. F, A, C. Right? Given the notes A, C, and F, F, A, C is the root position chord. So F is the root. The quality, F to A is a major triad. F to A is a major third. A to C is a minor third. This is a major triad. And then the A is the bass note, right? That's the third of the chord. So use 6 for the inversion symbol. All right, so really quickly here, we're going to do, this is again page 26 in the workbook. We're going to take a look at numbers 23, 25, 27, 29, 30, 32, and 34. I'm going to go a little bit quicker here just so you can see them in a little bit more real time. All right, number 23. From the bottom up, E flat, B flat, G, and C. Oh, by the way, don't forget your key signature. The key signature has 2 flats in it, right? B flat and E flat. So every B and every E is flatted in this piece of music unless there's a natural in front of it. So again, number 23 from the bottom up, E flat, B flat, G, and C. And the root, given those, there's 4 distinct notes, notice, right? 4 different notes. The root is C because if you put them all in ascending order, they're all a third apart from one another, right? C to E flat's a third, E flat to G is a third, G and B flat's a third. So the root of the chord, C, the type or the quality. Again, you have to look at root position to determine the type or quality. So here we're looking at a minor triad, C, E flat, G. And the distance from the root to the 7th, minor 7th. This is a minor 7th chord. Don't forget to add the 7 because without the 7, it's just a minor triad. So it's a minor 7th chord. And now look at the bass note. E flat is the bass, right? E flat's the bass. That's the third of the chord. And so you're going to use the symbol 6-5. 6-5 is first inversion for 7th chords. Now you might find it interesting if you look at the keyboard here. Here's the chord in root position. C, E flat, G, and B flat. Here's the chord in close position with the third and the bass. And here's the actual chord in the music. Right? But notice the bass note determines the inversion. It doesn't matter how it's spread above. The bass note determines the inversion. Okay, here's number 25. Number 25 is B flat, D, F, B flat. Number 25 is under the hold. So from the bottom up, we have a B flat, a D, an F, and a B flat. Notice there are 2 B flats, so you can eliminate one of them when you're thinking about it. And in root position, the chord would be spelled B flat, D, F. Okay, B flat's the root. The quality, that's a major triad. And notice the B flat is the bass. So you know it's in root position. You don't have to put any symbol for the inversion symbol, or you could just draw a line that says there's no symbol there. All right, number 27. From the bottom up, we have the notes A, C, F sharp, C. Notice there are 2 C's. A, C, F sharp, C. So ignore one of the C's. In root position, you would come up with F sharp, A, C. F sharp's the root. What's the quality of that chord? That's a diminished triad, right? Diminished triad. And then A in the bass, A is your bass note. That means first inversion. Here's the chord in the music. Here's number 29. Now in number 29, notice the A, which is a quarter note, is both goes for numbers 29 and for number 30. So the A here, quarter note, is still here, still sounding when these eighth notes come in. So the A is a part of this chord, but it's also a part of this chord because we have eighth notes in the other parts, and then the A in the soprano part is holding through. All right, from the bottom up, we have the notes C, E flat, G, and A. 4 distinct notes. So that must be a seventh chord if you have 4 different notes. So the notes again are C, E flat, G, and A. And in root position, A, C, E flat, G. That's the root position chord, right? All the notes are a third apart. So A is the root. The quality, A, C, E flat, G, is half diminished. Diminished triad with a minor 7. This is a half diminished 7th chord. And then the C in the bass, 6/5 position. The C in the bass is the third of the chord. So for 7th chords, that's 6/5. Okay, number 30, D, D, F sharp, A. Remember the A is still sounding. D, D, F sharp, A. Eliminate one of the Ds, and you can see the chord is just simply D, F sharp, A. So the root is D, the quality is major, and the inversion symbol, because the D is the bass note, you don't need one for triads. Okay, number 32, from the bottom up, D, D, G, B flat. There's 2 Ds. If you ignore the other D, in root position you'd have the chord G, B flat, and D. But notice the D is in the bass. So the root is G. What's the quality of G, B flat, D? It's minor triad. The D is the bass note. That's the 5th of the chord. So you're going to use 6/4 for triad. Second inversion for triad with the 5th in the bass is 6/4. All right, then lastly, number 34, G, B natural, D and G. The B natural makes what's called a Picardy third. 2 G's, ignore one of the G's, so it's actually G, B natural, D. G, it's major triad. G in the bass, no inversion symbol needed. Okay, and lastly, let me play the second line for you so you can hear all the chords. Okay, and before we finish this lecture, goes along with the homework that I'm going to put on Canvas. And the homework is, and remember the homework assignments are always from your workbook. This is going to be page 23, part A, and page 26, part B, numbers 1 through 17 from your workbook.